Your 10-year-old just muttered whatever under their breath after you said no to something they wanted. You feel that instant flare of frustration. Your first impulse is to make them understand why that attitude is unacceptable. So you start explaining, defending your decision, maybe even launching into a whole speech about respect and gratitude. But here's what just happened. You actually reinforce the exact behavior you're trying to stop. There's a response that takes literally 3 seconds that ends back talk almost immediately. And it's probably the opposite of everything you've been doing. By the time we're done here, you'll know exactly what it is, why it works, and how to use it starting today. Let me paint you a picture you'll probably recognize. Your child wants screen time before finishing their homework. You say no. They immediately fire back with, "You're so unfair, all my friends get to." You feel yourself getting defensive, you want them to see all the things you do for them, all the reasons your rules make sense. So you explain, you justify, you remind them they're lucky compared to other kids, and somehow 3 days later, the back talk is worse, not better. Sound familiar? Here's what's actually going on in that moment. When you engage with their back talk, when you explain yourself or try to make them see your reasoning, their brain receives a very specific message. Back talk equals attention. Back talk equals a conversation. Back talk equals power. You're not trying to reward the behavior, you think you're correcting it. But neurologically, you're teaching them that if they push back hard enough with the right tone and the right words, they get something valuable, your full attention and an emotional response. Now, before you start feeling terrible about this, let me be clear. This is what almost every parent does. It's completely instinctive. You're not failing. You're human. These responses are nearly universal because they feel right in the moment. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Your child says, "This is so stupid." And immediately you think they need to understand your perspective. So you launch into this detailed explanation. Well, the reason we have this rule is because last time you didn't finish your homework and your teacher sent an email. And we've talked about this before, and you know better. But here's the problem. When your child is emotionally activated, when that frustration or anger is running hot, their thinking brain is essentially offline. That perfectly logical explanation you're giving them isn't landing. It's just more noise. They're not processing your words. They're reacting to your tone and your intensity. Or maybe they hit you with everyone else's parents let them. And you can't resist. You respond with, "That's not even true. And even if it was, I'm not everyone else's mom." Now you're in a debate. And even if you win, even if you can prove you're right, you've lost something more important. You've shown them that rules are up for negotiation if they argue hard enough. Or here's another classic. They say, "I hate you," or "You're the worst parent ever." That stings. It hurts. So you respond from that hurt. "After everything I do for you, I work so hard to give you what you need, and this is the thanks I get." You're trying to make them feel guilty, make them see what they're doing to you, but all they're hearing is more emotion, more intensity, more proof that their words got a reaction. And then there's the lecture. They mutter something you can barely hear, and you deliver a 5-minute speech about respect, about how they need to be grateful, about how things were different when you were their age. But everything past the first 10 seconds is just background noise. The longer you talk, the more they tune out. I'm not saying these responses are wrong or that you're a bad parent for doing them. You're doing exactly what caring parents do. You're trying to teach, you're trying to make the lesson stick. But the length, the emotional charge, the back and forth engagement, it's actually working against you. So let me show you what's happening in your child's brain during these moments. Because once you understand the neuroscience, the solution becomes obvious. When your child talks back, their emotional brain has hijacked their system. The amygdala, that's the alarm center, is firing. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and rational thought, has essentially shut down. It's like when you're furious about something, someone tries to reason with you in that moment, and you can't even hear what they're saying. Your emotional brain is too loud. That's exactly what's happening with your child. And here's the part most parents miss. When you respond with lots of words, when you match their emotional intensity, when your voice carries that edge of frustration, you're keeping their emotional brain activated. You're not helping them regulate, you're actually escalating them. Their nervous system is mirroring yours. When you stay calm, they calm down. When you get activated, they escalate further. This co regulation pattern shows up in every developmental psychology study on parent child interactions. This doesn't mean you ignore the back talk. That would teach them disrespect is acceptable. But it also doesn't mean you treat it like a conversation worth having, because when you explain, debate, or lecture, their brain codes that as success, not consciously. They're not thinking, great, I got mom worked up, but subconsciously their brain is learning a pattern. Back talk gets attention. Backtalk creates power. Backtalk generates a reaction. And that's exactly why the 3-second response works. When you keep your response to one short sentence, delivered with zero emotional charge and no justification, you do something incredibly powerful. You show them that backtalk leads nowhere. It doesn't start a debate. It doesn't earn them your attention. It doesn't shift the outcome. It hits a wall. And when their brain realizes backtalk is a dead end, the behavior starts to fade. Not instantly, but consistently. So here's the actual response, and I need to warn you. This is going to feel too simple at first. It's going to feel like you're not doing enough. But that uncomfortable feeling is exactly why this works. When your child talks back, you pause. Just one beat, not a dramatic pause, just enough to regulate yourself. Then you say one neutral sentence that sets a boundary without engaging what they said. Here are the exact phrases. If they're giving you attitude or sass, you say, try again respectfully. That's it. 3 words, no lecture. But if they're actually upset, if they're crying or yelling, if they're too activated to try again, you need different words. You say, I'll listen when you're calm, or that tone doesn't work. And if they're just nagging, trying to wear you down to change your mind, you say, asked and answered. Now, here's what this is not. This isn't sarcastic. It's not cold or dismissive. It's not a power play designed to make them feel small. It's a calm, predictable boundary that doesn't feed the pattern. And here's exactly why it works. First, it's short. You're giving them nothing to argue against. There's no content to debate, no explanation to pick apart, no emotional reaction to push against. It's a verbal wall. Second, it's neutral. Your tone stays the same whether they said whatever or something much harsher. You're not matching their intensity. You're modeling what calm authority actually looks like. Third, it's consistent. Every single time they talk back, they get the same response. Over time, their brain learns this doesn't work, this doesn't get me anywhere, I need a different approach. After you deliver that response, you stop. You don't keep explaining, you don't wait for an apology, you don't clarify what you meant, you just stop talking. If they're ready to try again respectfully, you engage. If they're not, you walk away or redirect to something else. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Your 9-year-old asks to go to a friend's house. You say, not tonight, buddy. Their face drops. They cross their arms. That's not fair. You never let me do anything fun. Everything in you wants to say that's not true. You went to Mason's house 2 days ago, and I'm saying no because we have dinner with Grandma, which you knew about. But instead, you say try again respectfully. And then you stop talking. You don't explain. You don't defend. You stop. Your child stares at you, waiting for the rest of your sentence. Then they push again. But everyone else gets to go whenever they want. You're so strict. Every muscle wants to respond. You can feel the words forming, but you don't take the bait. I'll listen when you're calm. And again, you stop. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Your child might storm off, stomping feet, maybe a slammed door. That's okay. Let them go. They're not ready to talk. Or they might stand there breathing hard, trying to figure out their next move. Then maybe a minute later, they take a breath and say, "Can I go this weekend instead?" If they try again, even if their tone isn't perfect, even if you can still hear frustration, you acknowledge the effort. Thank you for asking differently. The answer is still no for tonight, but let's plan something this weekend. Then you move on. Here's what just happened. You showed them that back talk doesn't work. Calm communication does. The outcome doesn't change based on volume or emotion. And over time, that becomes the pattern their brain learns. You're probably thinking, but what if they don't stop? What if they keep escalating? Here's what you do, you follow through, you say, "I can see you're too upset to talk right now. We'll revisit this later." Then you disengage. You're not giving them the silent treatment. You remain present. But you're pausing the argument. You're showing them you're available. But back talk doesn't earn a debate. Here's what changes over time. In the first week or two, you'll probably see something psychologists call an extinction burst. Your child will push harder, get louder, test more intensely. Think of it like a vending machine that ate their dollar. They'll hit the buttons harder, shake it, trying to see if it's really broken or if the old pattern still works sometimes. This spike is normal. It means the method is working. Stay consistent. By week 2 or 3, you'll notice the shift. The back talk decreases, the eye rolls become less frequent. They might still test occasionally, but the intensity drops, not because you've lectured them into submission or scared them into compliance, because their brain has learned it doesn't work anymore. And eventually, your authority returns, not through control or fear or exhausting battles, through calm predictability. Your child starts to trust that you mean what you say, that your boundaries are real, that emotional escalation doesn't change outcomes, and that becomes the foundation for genuine respect. Remember that child from the beginning who rolled their eyes and said whatever? Picture 4 weeks from now. They ask for something, you say no. They pause, then say, okay, and walk away. No drama, no argument. Or they take a breath and say, I'm disappointed. Can we talk about why? That's not fantasy. That's what happens when you stop feeding the pattern. So here's what you need to remember. When your child talks back, pause. Deliver one neutral sentence in 3 seconds or less. Then stop talking. No explanation, no defense, no lecture. Just calm, consistent authority. Over time, the back talk fades. Your authority strengthens, your relationship improves. Not because you controlled them, because you showed them what respectful communication looks like and proved it's the only path that works. Now, here's the thing. I've put together more videos on the biggest parenting challenges you're facing. Each one gives you specific strategies that actually work. Check out the playlist on screen to see what else might help.